Sir Marcus had been standing guard outside the royal chambers for nearly 6 hours when the scream pierced through the thick oak doors. It wasn't just any cry. It was Princess Ilara's voice, filled with such terror that it made his blood run cold. The young princess had called out a single name. "Cordelia!" Without hesitation, Marcus burst through the chamber doors, his heavy boots echoing against the marble floor as he charged down the long corridor. The afternoon sunlight streamed through tall windows, casting long shadows that seemed to dance mockingly as he ran. His sword rattled against his armor with each hurried step. Princess Ilara, only 16 years old, had been the light of the kingdom since her mother's death 5 years ago. The entire court adored her gentle nature and kind heart. But ever since King Edmund had married Lady Cordelia 2 years ago, strange things had been happening in the palace. Servants whispered in dark corners, and the princess had grown increasingly withdrawn. Marcus rounded the corner leading to the princess's private study, where she often spent her afternoons reading or painting. The door stood wide open, which was unusual. Princess Ilara was always careful about her privacy, especially when Lady Cordelia was nearby. The two had never gotten along, though the princess tried her best to be respectful to her stepmother. As Marcus approached the doorway, he could hear muffled voices from inside. Lady Cordelia's sharp tone carried clearly. "You will do as I say, child. Your father doesn't need to know about your little discoveries." Marcus peered around the doorframe and saw Princess Ilara backed against the far wall, her face pale with fear. Lady Cordelia stood before her, holding what appeared to be a letter in her jeweled hand. The stepmother's usually perfect appearance seemed disheveled, her elaborate brown hair slightly messy, and her emerald dress wrinkled. "I won't stay quiet anymore," Princess Ilara said, her voice trembling but determined. "The people deserve to know what you've been doing with the kingdom's gold. Father trusted you with the treasury, and you've been stealing from our own people." Lady Cordelia's eyes flashed dangerously. "Stealing? I prefer to call it securing our family's future. Your dear father is too trusting, too generous with the peasants. Someone needs to think about what happens when times get difficult." Marcus felt his anger rising. He had suspected something was wrong with the kingdom's finances. The guards hadn't received their full pay in months, and the servants had been complaining about reduced food rations. Meanwhile, Lady Cordelia had been wearing increasingly expensive jewelry and had recently commissioned a new wing to be added to her private quarters. Princess Ilara clutched a small wooden box to her chest. "I found the records, Cordelia, all of them. The fake documents, the missing gold shipments, the bribes to the tax collectors. I know everything." "You foolish girl," Lady Cordelia hissed, taking a step closer to the princess. "Do you really think your father will believe you over his beloved wife?" "I've been very careful to paint you as a jealous stepdaughter who resents my presence here." Marcus had heard enough. He stepped into the room, his hand resting on his sword hilt. "Your Highness," he said formally, addressing the princess while keeping his eyes fixed on Lady Cordelia. "I heard you call for help." Lady Cordelia spun around, her face quickly transforming into a mask of innocence. "Sir Marcus, how good of you to check on us. The princess and I were just having a little family discussion, nothing to concern yourself with." But Princess Ilara's eyes were wide with relief and desperation. "Sir Marcus, please, you have to help me. She's been—" "The princess is overwrought," Lady Cordelia interrupted smoothly. "She's been having these wild fantasies lately. Perhaps too much time spent reading those adventure novels has affected her judgment." Marcus looked between the two women, noting the stark contrast between them. Princess Ilara's honest face showed genuine fear and urgency, while Lady Cordelia's expression seemed calculated and cold. The wooden box in the princess's hands was shaking slightly. "What's in the box, Your Highness?" Marcus asked gently. Princess Ilara glanced nervously at her stepmother before answering. "Evidence. proof of what she's been doing to our kingdom. Sir Marcus, you've served my family faithfully for 10 years. You knew my mother. You watched me grow up. Please, I need you to trust me." Lady Cordelia laughed, but there was no warmth in the sound. "Really, Marcus? You can't possibly believe these childish accusations. I'm the queen of this realm. I would never do anything to harm our people." Marcus studied Lady Cordelia's face carefully. He remembered how different things had been when Queen Isabella was alive. The kingdom had prospered, the people had been happy, and there had been joy in the palace corridors. Since Lady Cordelia's arrival, that joy had slowly drained away. "Your Majesty," Marcus said to Lady Cordelia, "perhaps we should all go to the king together. Let His Majesty sort out this misunderstanding." Lady Cordelia's composure slipped for just a moment, and Marcus caught a flash of panic in her eyes. "That won't be necessary. King Edmund is busy with important matters of state. We shouldn't bother him with trivial family squabbles." Princess Alara stepped forward boldly. "Trivial? Sir Marcus? She's stolen enough gold to feed every hungry family in our kingdom for a year. She's been selling our military supplies to neighboring countries and keeping the profits. And she's been forging documents to make it look like Father approved everything." The weight of these accusations settled over the room like a heavy blanket. Marcus felt pieces of a puzzle clicking into place in his mind. The strange late-night meetings he'd observed, the mysterious visitors who came and went from Lady Cordelia's quarters, the way certain palace records had suddenly become restricted. Lady Cordelia's mask of innocence was completely gone now, replaced by cold fury. "You have no proof of anything, girl, and even if you did, who would believe the word of a spoiled princess over the queen?" Princess Alara lifted the wooden box higher. "I have your handwriting on dozens of documents. I have copies of the real treasury records showing what our gold reserves should be. I even have a confession letter from Lord Garrett admitting that you paid him to falsify the trade agreements." Marcus felt his heart racing. Lord Garrett had died in a hunting accident just 3 weeks ago, an accident that had seemed suspicious to many in the court. If the princess was telling the truth, Lady Cordelia's crimes went far deeper than simple theft. "You're playing a dangerous game, child," Lady Cordelia warned, her voice dropping to barely above a whisper. "Accidents can happen to anyone in this castle, even princesses." The threat was unmistakable, and Marcus's hand tightened on his sword. No one threatened Princess Alara while he drew breath. The young woman had been like a daughter to him ever since Queen Isabella's death, and he had sworn an oath to protect the royal family with his life. Princess Alara's chin rose defiantly. "Are you threatening me in front of a royal guard?" Sir Marcus heard every word. Lady Cordelia turned to Marcus with a sly smile. "Sir Marcus is a loyal servant of the crown. He understands that maintaining peace in the royal family is more important than entertaining a young girl's fantasies. Don't you, Marcus?" The question hung in the air like a blade. Marcus realized that this moment would define not just his own fate, but the future of the entire kingdom. Princess Alara watched him with desperate hope, while Lady Cordelia's eyes promised terrible consequences if he chose the wrong side. Outside, storm clouds had gathered, and the first rumbles of thunder echoed through the palace walls. The thunder grew louder as Marcus made his decision. He stepped protectively in front of Princess Alara, his weathered face set with determination. "I serve the true crown, Your Majesty, and Princess Alara is the rightful heir to this throne." Lady Cordelia's face twisted with rage. "You fool! You have no idea what you're getting yourself into!" She moved toward the door, but Marcus blocked her path with his broad frame. "I'm afraid I can't let you leave just yet, Your Majesty. Not until King Edmund hears about these accusations." Marcus's voice was steady, but his mind was racing. He needed to get the princess and her evidence to safety before Lady Cordelia could summon her own allies. Princess Alara clutched the wooden box tighter. "Sir Marcus, There's something else you need to know. I think Cordelia had something to do with Lord Garrett's death. The night before his hunting accident, he sent me a secret message saying he wanted to confess everything to Father. Lady Cordelia let out a bitter laugh. You really are a naive child. Lord Garrett was a greedy man who got careless. His death was simply convenient timing. The casual way she spoke about a man's death sent chills down Marcus's spine. He had known Lord Garrett personally. The man had been troubled in his final weeks, always looking over his shoulder as if expecting danger. You had him killed, Princess Alara whispered, horror evident in her voice. I protected myself, Lady Cordelia replied coldly. Just as I'll protect myself from your ridiculous accusations. Guards, she suddenly shouted. Guards, help me! The princess has gone mad and attacked me! Marcus heard the sound of running footsteps echoing through the corridors. He knew that some of the newer guards were loyal to Lady Cordelia. She had been careful to place her own people in key positions throughout the palace. But he also knew there were still many who remembered Queen Isabella and remained faithful to the true royal bloodline. Princess, we need to move now, Marcus urged. Is there another way out of this room? Princess Alara nodded quickly. The servant's passage behind the bookshelf. Mother showed it to me when I was little. It leads directly to Father's private study. Lady Cordelia realized what they were planning and lunged forward, trying to grab the wooden box from Princess Alara's hands. You'll give me those documents right now. You little brat! Marcus caught Lady Cordelia's wrist, stopping her just inches from the princess. I suggest you step back, Your Majesty. The sound of footsteps was getting closer. Princess Alara was already moving toward the tall bookshelf along the eastern wall. She pressed something hidden behind a leather-bound volume, and a section of the shelf swung inward, revealing a narrow stone passage. Sir Marcus, quickly, she called. But as Marcus turned to follow her, 3 guards burst into the room. He recognized 2 of them immediately. Sir Roderick and Sir Baldwin, both men who had arrived at the palace shortly after Lady Cordelia's marriage to the king. The 3rd guard was young Thomas, barely 18 years old and new to the royal service. Arrest them both, Lady Cordelia commanded, pointing dramatically at Marcus and the princess. Sir Marcus has turned traitor, and the princess has threatened my life. Sir Roderick drew his sword without hesitation, but young Thomas looked confused and uncertain. Sir Marcus, but he's the most loyal guard in the entire kingdom. Are you sure about this, Your Majesty? Don't question the Queen's orders, boy, Sir Baldwin snapped, also drawing his weapon. Stand down, Marcus, and surrender the princess. Marcus kept his position between the other guards and Princess Alara. Thomas, you know me. You know I would never betray this family. Ask yourself, have things been better or worse in this kingdom since Lady Cordelia became queen? Thomas's young face was troubled. Everyone in the palace knew that life had become harder for the common people. Food was more scarce. Taxes had increased, and many of the king's generous programs for the poor had been quietly discontinued. I don't understand what's happening, Thomas admitted. Princess Alara stepped forward from the secret passage entrance. Thomas, you have a little sister in the village, don't you? About 8 years old? The young guard nodded, still looking confused. Has your family had enough food this winter? The princess asked gently. Has your father been able to find work in the royal smithy? Thomas's face grew troubled. No, Your Highness. Father says there's less work than ever before. Mother's been making soup from turnip peels and bones just to feed us all. That's because money that should go to employing our people has been stolen, Princess Alara explained. Thomas, I have proof that Lady Cordelia has been taking gold from our treasury and hiding it for herself. While your family goes hungry, she's been living in luxury. Sir Roderick snarled, Enough of this nonsense. The girl is obviously disturbed. We have our orders. But Thomas was looking back and forth between Princess Alara and Lady Cordelia. his young mind working through the implications. "Your Majesty," he said slowly to Lady Cordelia, "if these accusations are false, why not let Princess Ilara present her evidence to the king? Surely His Majesty would want to clear up any misunderstandings." Lady Cordelia's eyes flashed dangerously. "Because I don't have to prove my innocence to anyone. I am the queen of this realm." Her arrogant response seemed to make up Thomas's mind. He slowly lowered his sword. "I'm sorry, Your Majesty, but I swore an oath to protect the royal family and the kingdom. If there's even a chance that Princess Ilara is telling the truth." Sir Baldwin cursed and raised his weapon toward Thomas. "You treasonous fool!" Marcus moved like lightning, his own sword meeting Baldwin's with a sharp clang of metal. "You'll not harm that boy for doing what's right." The room erupted into chaos. Sir Roderick advanced on Princess Ilara while Marcus was engaged with Baldwin. The princess backed toward the secret passage, but she wasn't quick enough. Roderick grabbed her arm, causing her to drop the precious wooden box. The box hit the floor and burst open, sending papers scattering across the marble tiles. Official documents, letters, and treasury records spread everywhere. Lady Cordelia dove for the nearest papers, trying to gather them before anyone else could see their contents. But Thomas was faster. The young guard scooped up several documents, and his eyes widened as he read them. "These are treasury withdrawal orders," he said in amazement. "Signed by Lady Cordelia, thousands of gold pieces transferred to private accounts." Princess Ilara broke free from Sir Roderick's grasp and grabbed more papers from the floor. "And here are the real accounting records, showing how much gold we should have in reserve. Look at the difference, Thomas." Even Sir Roderick seemed shocked by what he was seeing. He had been following Lady Cordelia's orders, but he hadn't known the full extent of her crimes. "Your Majesty," he said uncertainly, "these documents, if they're real—" "They're forgeries!" Lady Cordelia shrieked, but her voice was desperate now. "The princess is trying to frame me." Marcus finished disarming Sir Baldwin and turned to help Princess Ilara gather the remaining evidence. "Thomas, can you help us get these documents to the king? He needs to see this immediately." Young Thomas nodded eagerly, but before anyone could move, the sound of more footsteps echoed from the corridor. This time, however, the approaching voice was familiar and authoritative. "What in blazes is going on in here?" King Edmund's deep voice boomed as he appeared in the doorway. The king was a tall, dignified man with graying hair and kind eyes, but at the moment his face showed confusion and growing anger. Lady Cordelia immediately composed herself and rushed to her husband's side. "Oh, Edmund! Thank goodness you're here. Your daughter has lost her mind completely. She's been making horrible accusations against me and has turned some of the guards against the crown." King Edmund looked around the room, taking in the scattered papers, the drawn swords, and the tense faces of everyone present. His gaze lingered on his daughter, who stood in the middle of the chaos holding official documents in her trembling hands. "Ilara," he said gently, "what's happened here? Tell me the truth." Princess Ilara looked into her father's eyes, knowing that this was her one chance to save the kingdom she loved. The future of everyone she cared about hung in the balance of what she said next. Princess Ilara took a deep breath and stepped toward her father, the scattered documents still clutched in her hands. "Father, I know this looks terrible, and I know Cordelia has convinced you that I resent her, but please, just look at these papers before you make any judgments." King Edmund's weathered face was unreadable as he accepted the documents from his daughter. Lady Cordelia moved closer to him, her voice honey-sweet with false concern. "Darling, you can't seriously believe these wild stories. The poor girl has been so troubled since her mother died. Perhaps she needs to spend some time away from court, somewhere quiet where she can recover her senses." But the king was already reading, his eyes moving quickly across the official papers. Marcus watched as King Edmund's expression changed from confusion to disbelief and finally to cold anger. The documents in his hands were damning, withdrawal orders for enormous sums of gold, all bearing Lady Cordelia's signature and personal seal. "These are treasury documents," King Edmund said slowly. "Cordelia, your signature appears on orders withdrawing over 50,000 gold pieces from our reserves, money meant for grain purchases during the winter months." Lady Cordelia's face had gone pale, but she managed to keep her voice steady. "Edmund, surely you don't believe I would actually steal from our own people? Those must be forgeries. Your daughter is clearly more disturbed than we realized." Princess Ilara knelt down and gathered more papers from the floor. "Father, there's more. Much more. Look at this letter from Lord Garrett written just 3 days before his death." She handed him a piece of parchment covered in shaky handwriting. King Edmund read aloud, "Your Majesty, I can no longer live with the guilt of what I have done. Queen Cordelia threatened my family if I didn't help her falsify the trade agreements with the neighboring kingdoms. She has been selling our military supplies and keeping the profits for herself. I have documented proof of everything, and I pray that God will forgive me for my cowardice in not speaking sooner." The silence in the room was deafening. Even Sir Roderick and Sir Baldwin, who had been following Lady Cordelia's orders, looked shocked by the revelation. Young Thomas was staring at Lady Cordelia with a mixture of disgust and anger, probably thinking about his hungry little sister back home. Lady Cordelia's composure finally cracked completely. "You don't understand," she burst out. "This kingdom was dying when I married you, Edmund. Your precious late wife was too soft, too generous with the common people. Someone had to think about the future." King Edmund's voice was dangerously quiet. "Isabella was the finest woman who ever lived, and she cared more about our people than herself. How dare you speak of her that way?" "She was weak," Lady Cordelia snarled, all pretense of innocence gone now. "She gave away gold to every beggar and peasant who asked for help. She built hospitals and schools instead of strengthening our armies. She would have bankrupted this kingdom with her foolish charity." Princess Ilara stood up, her young face blazing with righteous anger. "My mother built a kingdom where people wanted to live, where children could grow up healthy and educated. You've turned it into a place where families go hungry so you can hoard gold for yourself." Marcus stepped forward with more evidence that had been scattered across the floor. "Your Majesty, there are also records here showing that Lady Cordelia has been in secret communication with King Victor of the Eastern Realm. It appears she's been selling information about our military defenses." King Edmund examined the letters with growing horror. His own wife had not only been stealing from their people, but had been betraying military secrets to potential enemies. The depth of her treachery was staggering. Lady Cordelia saw that her position was hopeless and decided to abandon all pretense. "You think your precious little princess is so innocent?" she sneered. "She's been spying on me for months, creeping around the palace like a common thief. She broke into my private chambers and stole those documents." "I had to," Princess Ilara said firmly. "I noticed that families in the village were going hungry while you kept buying more and more jewelry. I started asking questions, and when I couldn't get answers, I had to find the truth myself." King Edmund looked at his daughter with new respect. "How long have you known about this?" "I started suspecting about 6 months ago," Princess Ilara admitted. "But I wanted to be absolutely certain before I accused the Queen of anything. I've been gathering evidence bit by bit, and I finally found Lord Garrett's confession letter hidden in Cordelia's jewelry box 3 days ago." Thomas spoke up from where he stood near the doorway. "Your Majesty, if I may..." "Princess Ilara is telling the truth about the people suffering. My own family has barely had enough food this winter, and we're not the only ones. The entire village has been struggling while..." He gestured toward Lady Cordelia's elaborate dress and expensive jewelry. King Edmund's anger was like a cold fire now, controlled but absolutely devastating. "Guards," he said quietly, "arrest the former Queen Cordelia on charges of treason, theft from the crown treasury, and conspiracy with enemy kingdoms." Lady Cordelia backed toward the window, her face wild with desperation. "You can't do this to me. I'm your wife. I gave up everything to marry you." "You gave up nothing," King Edmund replied coldly. "You saw an opportunity to gain power and wealth, and you took it. But you made one crucial mistake. You underestimated my daughter's love for our people and her determination to protect them." Sir Roderick and Sir Baldwin, realizing which way the wind was blowing, quickly moved to obey their king's orders. They flanked Lady Cordelia, though she continued to protest and rage. "This isn't over," she screamed as they led her toward the door. "You think your precious people will thank you for this? They're ungrateful peasants who will always want more than you can give." After Lady Cordelia had been removed from the room, King Edmund sank into a chair, looking older than his 53 years. The weight of his wife's betrayal was clearly devastating to him. Princess Alara approached cautiously and placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. "Father, I'm so sorry. I know you cared for her." King Edmund reached up and covered his daughter's hand with his own. "I thought I knew her, Alara, but I was blind to what she really was. If you hadn't been brave enough to investigate and speak up, she might have destroyed everything your mother and I built together." Marcus cleared his throat respectfully. "Your Majesty, what would you like us to do about the guards who were following Lady Cordelia's orders? Sir Roderick and Sir Baldwin were clearly working for her interests rather than the crown's." King Edmund considered this carefully. "They will be questioned thoroughly to determine how much they knew about her crimes. If they were merely following orders in ignorance, they can remain in service. But if they knew about the theft and betrayal—" He left the sentence unfinished, but his meaning was clear. Young Thomas stepped forward nervously. "Your Majesty, if I may make a suggestion, the people of the kingdom should know what happened here today. They deserve to know that their suffering wasn't due to natural hardships, but because someone was stealing from them." Princess Alara nodded eagerly. "Thomas is right, Father. And we need to use the recovered gold to help the families who have been struggling. We should also investigate everyone Lady Cordelia placed in positions of authority to make sure there aren't other traitors among them." King Edmund smiled at his daughter, and for the first time in months, it was a genuine smile filled with pride. "Your mother would be so proud of the woman you've become, Alara. You risked everything to protect our people, even when you knew I might not believe you." "I had to try," Princess Alara said simply. "This kingdom is worth fighting for, and the people in it deserve better than what they've been getting." Over the following days, the full extent of Lady Cordelia's crimes was revealed. She had stolen over 200,000 gold pieces from the treasury, enough to feed every family in the kingdom for an entire year. She had sold military equipment to 3 different neighboring kingdoms and had been planning to eventually poison King Edmund and rule through a puppet council. The stolen gold was recovered from various hidden accounts, and King Edmund immediately put it to use, helping the struggling families throughout the realm. New food distribution programs were established, the guards received their back pay, and work projects were started to give employment to those who needed it. Lady Cordelia was tried for treason and sentenced to life imprisonment in the Tower prison, her noble title stripped away forever. Some of her conspirators, including Sir Baldwin, were found to have been active participants in her schemes and received similar punishments. Sir Marcus was promoted to captain of the Royal Guard for his loyalty and quick thinking. Young Thomas was given a permanent position in the Palace Guard and a substantial raise so he could better support his family. Princess Alara became more involved in the daily governance of the kingdom, working alongside her father to ensure that the people's needs were being met. She established a network of trusted contacts throughout the realm who could report on conditions in different areas, making it much harder for anyone to abuse their position without being detected. The kingdom slowly recovered from the damage Lady Cordelia had done, and the people's trust in their royal family was restored. King Edmund often said that his daughter had saved not just the kingdom's gold, but its very soul. And on quiet evenings, when the palace was peaceful, Princess Elara would sit in her mother's old garden and read the letters of gratitude that arrived daily from families whose lives had been improved by the recovery of the stolen funds. She knew that her mother would have been proud to see justice served and the people protected. The corridor where Sir Marcus had charged to answer her cry for help became known among the palace guards as the Hall of Truth, a reminder that sometimes the most important battles are fought not with swords, but with courage and honesty in the face of corruption.